We're catching up with Angela Lim. So she is the Chief Executive of Clearhead, which is an online mental health platform, and Renata White, who is an SJS Board member and President of Te Mana Ākonga, which is the National Māori Students Association. So welcome to you both, and thank you both for coming. So I thought we'd start off by just talking a bit about both of your backgrounds. So Angela, if you wanted to start and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey into the mental health space, and what Clearhead is, and why the mental health is an important issue for you.
Yeah, so my background is I trained as a pediatric doctor, very passionate about young people being our future, and I learned about the fact that we have the highest youth suicide rate in the OECD countries, and it just made me really sad because, you know, this is not a new phenomenon. It's been something that's going on for decades, and nothing seems to be different. And even if you look at a lot of the mental health inquiry report, the one that was released a couple of years ago and the ones before that, they're all saying the same thing. And so we really needed to transform the way that we choose to provide care. And I wasn't really seeing it happening in the system. And I thought, well, if you see a problem and it's not being fixed, I guess the best thing next to do is to try and do it yourself. And so,
yeah,
so
awesome.
That's how Clearhead started.
That's amazing. Cool, thank you. And Renata, being a representative of Māori students, for you, why is mental health a topic of importance, and what does being involved in that space mean for you?
Yes, kia ora, Julia, and Angela. Thank you for having us on this call. For me, my history I started from student politics. I was in our local student association, Te Titahi Ki Toa, and I grew an interest in serving others and being able to support others along their journey in the academic world. So when I moved into a position of a bit more power as the vice president of AUT, the Student Association, I was able to see the greater effects of, I moved into as a vice president of the Student Association, and I was able to see some of the flaws that happened along my time as vice president. So I decided to move into this space as Te Mana Ākonga, one of the co-presidents, to see if I can further support Aotearoa in that space, and see if there's other opportunities that not only my local university but any other tertiary education needed that support. I was there.
Sure. That's awesome. Thank you, Renata. And so Angela, having a clinical background, what have you seen in your experience as being some of the main sort of barriers for students in finding the support they need? And how does your mental health platform, Clearhead, sort of seek to address those needs?
Yeah, I think the student cohort is a little bit different from the general population in the sense that, yes, there is still stigma, but actually there's much more acceptance that people do need support than, say, the older generations. And so what we see more commonly is that schools actually struggle to provide sufficient support. So you're looking at these long wait times, especially during exam period where everyone needs to see a therapist for support, and there just isn't enough therapy available for people who need help. So for us, what we saw is more just really people want support, can't get it. People want support at times that is not available. So, often it's a night of big drinking, and then, you have a fight, and then it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday. You need support then, you're not going to get it. And so it's about acknowledging the lifestyle of the students and how our health system, including the ones that provided by the education system, doesn't meet that need. And then finally thinking about how young people prefer to access support. And, the first port of call is sort of a texting-based type of format rather than, calling someone. And so again, Clearhead provides support on all of those three grounds. It's a digital platform, so it's scalable. Whether it's one person on the platform or 1,000 people on the platform at the same time, the system still works. The system is available 24/7, so it's Saturday 2 a.m. You need support, you can go on there. And then, of course, in terms of like being able to just in a non-judgment, in a judgment-free way to kind of say that this is my issue, you can text the chatbot and get sort of the feedback immediately. So those are three ways in which we consider what it means for a young person today to access support, and how do we design systems in which to achieve that.
Sure. So it's removing those barriers, a lot of those barriers that we have already. Sure, thanks, Angela. And so Renata, having had lots of experience in the student space and representing different students at different organisations, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest sort of issues that you see affecting student mental health at the moment?
I think that's an awesome question. I think some of the biggest issues facing or affecting the mental health of students is the accessibility, as mentioned by Angela. Not only the accessibility within the tertiary space, but being able to get to those face-to-face interactions. I know that COVID has allowed for some of these engagements to be on Zoom, but not necessarily every student has access to the internet. We did do a survey, both Te Mana Ākonga and NZUSA both did surveys, and we realized that students were not able to get internet access, did not have a laptop available for themselves to be able to go into these spaces, or because of COVID, they weren't able to go anywhere or to do a face-to-face interaction. So we saw a lot of accessibility issues. And a result of COVID, there was a lot of issues around feeling lonely and feeling very distant socially, not being able to interact with friends, not being able to catch up, not being able to share that space because of government, preventions.
Yeah, and I guess that's where a platform like Clearhead is quite useful, in that it is quite personalized. The experience of using it is quite a personalized experience, would you say, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when you're thinking about sort of providing support, the first generation is just a website that you kind of just go searching by yourself. There's so much information. And then when you're not feeling really good, your ability to actually process the information in an acceptable way for yourself is just very difficult. And so how do we provide you all the benefits of having someone sitting next to you, but we use machines to do it so that you can still get that personalized approach. So if you're dealing with anxiety, we'll provide you more anxiety-related content, not just like depression content, for example.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. And so just thinking about the sorts of things that many of our students might struggle with, because we have such a diverse student population, obviously the types of issues that students may be dealing with and the support required for them may differ quite broadly. From your perspective, Renata, being president of Te Mana Ākonga, how do you see the issues that, for instance, Māori students might be managing and dealing with differing from that of non-Māori students, for example, and the sort of support required for those issues?
So some of the things I see regarding like mental health issues that may be different between Māori and non-Māori, I think there's more than just one way to look at it. It's whether like the individuals wanting to go to seek support. Not all many times they don't actually want to, or they're too afraid to ask for that support or ask for help. And it's one of the barriers where we haven't really been able to get data on, because if they're not wanting to engage in the surveys, then they're not wanting to acknowledge necessarily acknowledge that there are issues, as well as other avenues of they might be looking for a different style of support than the normal Western way of approaching issues. For example, if we were to look at Te Whare Tapawha, which is a model by Mason Jerry, we'd see that we'd look at it and we'd understand that there's a balance or an unbalanced person, that they're dealing with something, and so they're trying to rebalance themselves and not necessarily be able to do that on their own, but they might need an engagement from others. So they might need support from family, they might need support from friends, going out with friends and just yarning, or just being in the pub, or just chilling with a friend, or Netflix and chill, but the nice kind. Or they might need to get out of their heads, basically. They're thinking too much, and they just need to clear their head, or they need to recenter themselves and maybe go somewhere to just be calm and be still, and to release whatever negative things that are impacting on them. I'm not too, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in non-Māori students, but I think for Māori students, we have a tendency to not ask for more because we're expecting less from our providers. It may not be directly related to mental health, but there's been a few studies on, just the normal health practices, and Māori would normally receive second-rate procedures, second-rate medicine or advice that might be outdated for the normal public. So we are, in some cases, receiving second-best processes. So if there was opportunities to make it more equitable, make it more everyone consistency. If everyone had a consistent approach to the health experience, perhaps there might be better outcomes for Māori and better outcomes for everyone, really.
We were talking about so the sort of cultural differences and the care that students might need. Angela, can you talk to us a little bit about the development of Clearhead and how those sort of cultural differences were taken into account?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so I was obviously passionate about a lot of things in healthcare, but the main one was around the inequity in health outcomes. And obviously, when you look at statistics, not just in mental health, but across the board, Māori disproportionately represent in terms of poor health outcomes across both physical and mental health. And a large part of it is the fact that our system is designed in a Pākehā type of mindset around how health is approached, rather than a more holistic way that when you consider sort of the, Renata mentioned Te Whare Tapawha as a way of how it all integrates together. So it is absolutely beneficial when you think about aspects of sort of models of care that represents more Indigenous way of thinking. So, for example, we acknowledge that for Māori, especially young people, they're gonna reach out to their support people a lot more, and often those are their friends, and yet their friends are not really equipped to be able to support them because they're not trained in mental health, and so what we believe in is like, well, if you want to support the individual, you have to support the people around them. And really take that whānau ora approach for providing support. And so when we designed it, we really worked with sort of like Māori and other support people. How would you imagine a support people pathway where you are empowered to learn about mental health and then provide the support and put in place, for example, a suicide safety plan for people that you're concerned about for suicide? We know we have really high youth suicide rates. So those are ways in which we really take from first principles, like, what are the ways of thinking that Māori might be more likely to practice, and how do we see that manifest in behaviors, and how do we then put in place, design a system that addresses those very behaviors directly?
Yeah, so Ren, just one sort of last question. Being a representative of Māori students and a leader in that space, what would you say to any Māori students who might be struggling with their mental health at the moment, just in terms of giving them some encouragement to reach out? What would you what would you say?
Oh yeah, this might be a big pressure type question, but I think trying to stick to the basics is really key. So find a solid group of friends, one that you can just chat with, people that you can just call on whenever you need, whatever the hours, and build that relationship and strengthen that relationship. Ask for support along your journey. You've got local student bodies that are there to support you in your academic journey, and my role is in Te Mana Ākonga. We represent your voice, all voices, and whatever those voices are on a national level. So we're there to make sure that your institute is doing the best it can for you, as well as deliver some of those messages to the governing bodies and Parliament. And, you know, if there are issues, reach out to us, reach out as much as possible, so that it is better for you, as well as it is better for the next generation or the next lot of students coming through. So making that an easier, more accessible journey for academic year.
Thanks, Renata. And Angela, just last question, if there are some students who might be listening to us who want to know how to access Clearhead, what do they do, how do they sign up, and what can they expect?
Yeah, so if they're listening and they're part of the student job search program, so to sign up, it's just sjs.clearhead.org.nz. And what we will do is you need to just sign up with your university email address to get free access to Clearhead. And basically, if you come onto the system, you can work through on your own time what you're going through, get access to really cool content and interactive tools that help you work through your issue. And then if you do need to seek therapy, you can very easily find therapists online as well.